A business owner came to me after spending $10,000 a month for 8 months. And they asked one simple question: was this a good investment? They told me they had done more than $100,000 in revenue. And I asked a simple follow-up question: could they connect that revenue with the marketing? Since they couldn't, I suggested we should have had this conversation before they ever signed the contract. If you're thinking about hiring a marketing agency, or if you already have one, these 3 questions are going to save you a lot of money and frustration. The first question that I want you to ask is, what are we going to measure and how are we going to know if this is working? Revenue alone is not the answer. The real question is, would this have happened without the marketing? So let's get clear on this client that spent $10,000 per month for 8 months. They invested $80,000 into their marketing, and it is entirely unclear whether that was wasted or not. And that's the problem. You need to know what exactly it is that you're paying for, and you need to have a plan for how you're going to measure the results. Now, it's important to know that this measurement is not going to be perfect, but a very simple way to be able to identify if something is working or not is to look at your bank account. If the balance in your bank account isn't going up, something's wrong with your business. It might not be a marketing problem. It could be various other problems in the business. That's why it's important to have more numbers to look at. But you can start with this one figure. How much money do you have in the bank? In this case, the problem wasn't that the measurement wasn't perfect. The problem was there was no measurement in place. I want to be clear that marketing measurement is never going to be perfect, but having some numbers is better than having nothing to measure the success or failure of your campaign. The bottom line is that if you can't measure progress, then you can't judge the value of what it is that you're investing in. Question number 2, I want you to look hard at your website and consider what needs to be fixed before we start investing at all. Most agencies are going to sell you tactics, things like ads, SEO, social media. These things are easy to sell, and the problem is they're just going to amplify whatever's already there. I cannot count the number of times that I've heard from clients that another agency sold them a marketing campaign and then told them that their website was the thing that wasn't driving conversions and offered to build a new website. This problem should have been identified long before any other marketing campaign was put in place. Look at your website and identify what needs to be fixed first. Let me tell you about a client that went to a conference. They were a real estate agent, and they had heard about all the great things that other real estate agents were doing with chatbots and ads on Facebook. They came to me asking if I could build a chatbot for their website and run some ads to send them traffic. I asked them first what their goal was. They said they wanted more leads. This was a great answer and far ahead of what most conversations I have begin with. So many people are looking for more people to subscribe to their newsletter or follow them on social media, but those things don't add revenue to the bottom line for your business. This person wanted leads and they knew it. The next thing that I asked is where our conversation began to fall apart. I asked them, how many leads did you get last month? Since that's what they wanted, we need to know where we're starting, and they had no idea. As a result, I suggested that we start by measuring what's happening on their website and go from there. Having this data a month later, I was able to return to them and explain that 100% of the people that visit their website from a mobile phone immediately leave the website. This website was so terrible on mobile devices that if we were to run ads, we would be setting fire to about 70% of our ad budget, because roughly 70% of the internet is traffic from mobile devices. This had to be fixed first. The very next thing that I was able to see in the data is that people went to 3 different pages on their website before they were willing to fill out a form and become a lead. So I recommended fixing these two things. First, we would fix the mobile responsive design of their website so it would load fast and people on mobile devices would stick around on the website. Second, we would rearrange the menu and the calls to action to focus on these 3 pages that help to warm up leads so that way they were willing to fill out a form and become a lead in their sales pipeline. Those 2 changes alone resulted in doubling the number of leads that they received the following month. That's right, we were able to deliver what the client wanted, more leads, without the ads and without the chatbot. The problem this client had was not that they needed more marketing, but they needed a stronger foundation for the marketing they were already doing. This is what I want you to take away, is that good agencies start by fixing the foundation, not selling more marketing to drive traffic to a website that isn't going to convert. Now, question number 3 might sting a little bit if you've already signed a contract. I want you to ask, what happens if this doesn't work, and what's it going to take to get out of this campaign? Most marketing agencies cannot promise results, and that's fair because algorithms change and the market changes rapidly. Promising specific results is going to end in failure every time. What agencies usually promise are deliverables, the specific actions that they can take that can move towards the goal that's defined by the business. So far, none of this is a problem, and it's standard procedure. You should expect this from any marketing campaign that you are involved in. Here's the red flag. Watch for contracts that include the language that removes the requirement to deliver any specific results, but then inserts language that causes penalties and harms the client. The problem is when the contract has teeth against the client, even when nothing is guaranteed by the service provider. Let me expand on that previous example where the client had already spent $80,000. After our conversation, they decided it was time to take their business elsewhere. They looked at their contract and were surprised by what they found. The terms said that if they canceled within the first 6 months, they would still have to pay 100% of the contract. If they canceled within the second 6 months, the second half of the year, they were still going to have to pay half of the contract. So this client had already spent $80,000. They wanted to avoid spending an additional $40,000. They weren't sure that they had received anything for the money they already spent, and the contract they signed said they were going to have to spend more money to stop spending money. The problem here is that all the downside risk was on the client and none against the agency. According to the terms of the contract, the agency could deliver nothing and the client would still have to pay. Anytime you read a contract that has language like that, my recommendation is that you run. Tear it up and go find somebody else to work with. I'll give you a different example. This one I didn't personally have any involvement with, but I talked with somebody at a conference that shared a horror story of their experience working with a different agency. This person hired an agency to build and manage a website for them. They spent a few years developing content on that website. When they decided to take their business elsewhere, they canceled the services, and that's when they realized that fine print in the contract they really should have read. According to the agreement, the marketing agency owned the domain name, the website, and all of the content that was published on it. All they had to do was do a quick find and replace and take the client's business name out of that content and put their competition into it. They had the website sold within the same week as they canceled the previous client, and now this person had spent years building the online presence for their business, and it was being directed to their competition. The contract said the agency owned everything, and the payments that were made were essentially rent. Let me be very clear. If the contract says that the agency cannot promise results, that's normal. But if the contract punishes you for leaving, that's a red flag, and you need to go find somebody else to work with. Before you sign anything, I want you to check and be sure that you understand what's being measured, what has to change for this to work, and what happens if this is canceled. If this was helpful, we share this type of thinking every week. I want to invite you to visit OptSus.com. That's OptSus.com. And there you can subscribe to our weekly email, Grow with OptSus. We'll send you one bite-sized action that you can take this week to grow your business online. This is completely free. It's the way that we can help the most businesses to grow online. We also take a small number of clients to work directly with OptSus each year. If you're interested in that, you can find more information at OptSus.com.